My name is Maya, and for 5 years I lived as a ghost in my own home. I wasn't silenced by shouting. I was silenced by a husband who made me feel wrong every time I spoke. By the time I realized what was happening, I had already learned to measure my words, soften my emotions, and apologize for feelings I had every right to have. When I said I was hurt, he said I was too sensitive. When I asked for understanding, he said I was complaining. When I tried to explain myself, he reminded me of everything I did wrong. Nothing I did was ever right. So I stopped explaining. Then I stopped sharing. And eventually I stopped speaking, at least about anything that mattered. I didn't lose my voice overnight. I gave it up slowly, trying to survive a marriage where my emotions were treated like a mistake. I know that sounds dramatic. I can almost hear my husband Richard's voice in my head right now. Always so dramatic, Maya. Always exaggerating. That's what he would say whenever I tried to express how I felt. Eventually I stopped trying. The thing about losing yourself is that it doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, like erosion. One small compromise here, one boundary crossed there, until one day you wake up and don't recognize the woman staring back at you in the mirror. You see someone who flinches at the sound of a key in the door. Someone who rehearses conversations in her head, trying to predict which words will cause the least damage. Someone who has learned to make herself smaller, quieter, less visible, less there. I met Richard at a friend's barbecue 7 years ago. It was one of those perfect summer evenings in Atlanta. Warm but not oppressive, with a gentle breeze that carried the smell of grilled meat and laughter. I was 26, wearing a yellow sundress that my mother had bought me for my birthday. Yellow used to be my favorite color. I loved how it looked against my dark skin, how it made me feel bright and alive. Richard noticed me immediately. He was standing by the grill with the host, but his eyes kept finding me across the yard. He was tall, 6'2", with an athletic build and a smile that seemed to light up his whole face. When he finally walked over to introduce himself, I felt my stomach flip. "I'm Richard," he said, extending his hand. "And I've been trying to work up the courage to talk to you for the past 20 minutes. I laughed, charmed by his honesty. "Why did you need courage?" "Because you're beautiful," he said simply. "And because I have a feeling that if I mess this up, I'll regret it for a long time." We talked for 3 hours that night. He was charming, confident, funny. He asked questions about my life, where I grew up, what I studied in college, what my dreams were. He seemed genuinely interested in my answers, leaning in close to hear me over the music, laughing at my jokes, making me feel like I was the only person at the party. "You're not like other women," he told me at the end of the night as we exchanged phone numbers. "You're real. You're genuine. That's rare." I blushed, flattered. I didn't realize then that this was the first warning sign. The way he positioned himself as my guide, the one who could see my true value that others missed. The way he immediately separated me from other women, as if loving me required putting everyone else down. The way he made me feel special by making me feel different, isolated, set apart. But I was 26 and lonely and tired of bad dates with men who couldn't hold a conversation. Richard seemed like everything I'd been looking for. The courtship was intense. He called me the very next morning, not even waiting the obligatory 3 days, to ask me to dinner. That first date turned into a second, then a third, then suddenly we were seeing each other every day. He sent flowers to my office. He texted me constantly, "Good morning" messages, "Thinking of you" messages, "Can't wait to see you" messages. My coworkers teased me about having a secret admirer. My roommate, Jennifer, raised an eyebrow when I came home with yet another bouquet. "Girl, this man is intense," she said, arranging the roses in a vase. "I know," I said, unable to stop smiling. "Isn't it wonderful?" It's something," Jennifer said carefully. "Just, make sure you're still spending time with us too. We miss you." I waved off her concern. "Of course I will. I'm just enjoying this. It's been so long since I felt this way about someone." But the truth was, I was already seeing my friends less. Richard wanted to spend every free moment together, and when I suggested splitting time between him and my social life, his face would fall. "I just really like being with you," he'd say, looking wounded. "Don't you feel the same way? I mean, if you'd rather hang out with your friends than with me, I understand." I just thought. He never finished that sentence. Never said what he thought. But the implication was clear. If I really loved him, I'd want to be with him all the time. Anything less meant I didn't care as much as he did. So I canceled plans. I stopped going to my weekly book club. I missed my cousin's baby shower because Richard had planned a surprise weekend getaway. I told myself it was romantic, this all-consuming love. I told myself I was lucky. 3 months into our relationship, Richard suggested I get rid of my dating apps. We're serious about each other, right? So why do you still have those? Are you keeping your options open? No, of course not, I said quickly. I just haven't thought about it. Well, it makes me uncomfortable, he said. Knowing those are still on your phone. Knowing other men can still message you. I deleted them that night. It seemed like a small thing, a reasonable request. We were exclusive after all. Why would I need dating apps? 6 months in, Richard started making comments about my clothes. Nothing overt at first, just little observations. That skirt's kind of short, isn't it? He'd say, his tone casual but his jaw tight. Is it? I don't think so. I've worn it before. I know. I'm just saying, you're my girlfriend now. I don't love the idea of other men looking at you like that. Like what? You know what I mean. Just, maybe you could wear something else? For me. And I would change. Because I loved him. Because making him happy made me happy. Because the discomfort I felt at being told what to wear was smaller than the discomfort I'd feel if he was upset with me. Looking back now, I can see the pattern so clearly. The slow, systematic isolation. The way he positioned every request as proof of my love. The way my world gradually shrank until it contained only him and whatever pleased him. But at the time I couldn't see it. I was in love. And love, I thought, meant compromise. Sacrifice. Putting someone else's needs before your own. We moved in together after a year. My roommate Jennifer was getting married and moving in with her fiancé, so it seemed like natural timing. Richard had a nice 2-bedroom apartment in Midtown, much nicer than the place I'd been sharing. He presented it as a practical decision. You're paying all this rent for a place you barely stay at anymore, he said. Why don't you just move in with me? We'll split everything 50-50. It makes sense. Except we didn't split everything 50-50. Richard made more money than I did. He worked in finance, I was a junior accountant, so he said it only made sense for him to pay more of the rent. Which seemed fair. But somehow, that financial imbalance became justification for other imbalances. I paid for most of the furniture, he'd say when I suggested rearranging the living room. So I should get the final say on how it's arranged. I pay more rent, he'd say when I wanted to paint the bedroom a color he didn't like. So I think I should get to decide. I contribute more financially, he'd say when I complained about doing all the housework. You contribute by taking care of the home. That's fair, isn't it? Slowly, imperceptibly, the apartment stopped feeling like ours and started feeling like his. I was just living there. A guest in my own home. The proposal came at the 2-year mark. We were on vacation in Jamaica. A trip Richard had planned and paid for, another thing I owed him gratitude for, and he proposed on the beach at sunset. It was beautiful, romantic, exactly the kind of moment I'd imagined as a little girl. Maya, he said down on one knee in the sand, you've made me the happiest man alive. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me? I said yes, of course. I loved him. I wanted to marry him. And somewhere in the back of my mind a small voice whispered, maybe once we're married things will get better. Maybe once we're married he'll relax. Maybe once we're married I'll stop feeling like I'm walking on eggshells. That small voice was wrong. The wedding was small. Richard didn't believe in wasting money on one day, when we could put it toward our future. We had 30 people at a restaurant, a simple ceremony, a nice dinner. No first dance, no speeches, no fanfare. My mother cried and I told myself it was happy tears. But I saw the way she looked at Richard when he wasn't watching. I saw the worry in her eyes. Are you happy, baby? She asked me the morning of the wedding as she helped me zip up my dress. Of course, Mama. Why wouldn't I be? She paused, her hands still on my shoulders. You just seem different lately. Quieter. Like you're far away even when you're right here. I'm just tired from all the planning, I lied. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. You know you can always come home, right? No matter what. My door is always open. I know, Mama. I wish I'd paid more attention to that conversation. I wish I'd asked her what she'd seen that I couldn't. The first year of marriage was when things really crystallized into the pattern that would define the next 4 years. Richard had very specific ideas about what a wife should be, and he expected me to fulfill them all. A wife cooked dinner every night even when she'd worked 10 hours and could barely stand. A wife kept the house spotless, the laundry done, the bathroom scrubbed. A wife managed the grocery shopping, the meal planning, the social calendar. A wife was available for sex whenever her husband wanted it, regardless of whether she was tired or stressed or simply not in the mood. A wife was supportive, pleasant, agreeable. A wife didn't complain or make demands. A wife didn't have bad days or off moments. A wife was always on, always performing the role of the perfect partner. I tried so hard to be that wife. I'd wake up at 5:30 to prep dinner in the slow cooker before heading to work. I'd clean the bathroom every Saturday morning. I'd iron Richard's shirts even though I hated ironing, even though my own clothes went straight from the dryer to my body, wrinkled or not. But it was never enough. There was always something I'd missed, something I'd done wrong, something that disappointed him. The bathroom counter has water spots. This isn't the way my mother made chicken. Did you really need to buy the name brand cereal? The generic is fine. Why is there dust on the baseboards? You seem tired lately. Maybe you should try harder to get more sleep. Every comment felt like a paper cut. Individually, they were small, almost negligible. But accumulated over days and weeks and months and years, they left me bleeding. The worst part was how he'd react when I tried to push back. If I said I was too tired to cook, he'd get quiet and withdrawn. He'd make himself a sandwich, slamming the cabinets, radiating disappointment. He wouldn't speak to me for hours, sometimes days. The silent treatment was his favorite weapon. A way of punishing me without technically doing anything wrong. If this sounds like your story, you're not alone. Subscribe, like, and share. Your voice matters here. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been silenced in love? I'm not ignoring you, he'd say if I called him out on it. I just don't have anything to say right now. But his silence said everything. It said, you failed me. You've disappointed me. You're not good enough. And I would scramble to fix it, to make things right, to win back his approval. I would apologize even when I'd done nothing wrong. I would promise to do better, to be better. I would shape myself into whatever form he needed me to take. I became an expert at reading his moods. I could tell from the sound of his footsteps whether he'd had a good day or a bad one. I could tell from the set of his shoulders whether he was open to conversation or needed to be left alone. I could tell from the way he said my name whether I was about to be praised or criticized. I lived in a constant state of low-grade anxiety, always monitoring, always adjusting, always trying to predict and prevent his displeasure. My job suffered. I was so exhausted from managing Richard's emotions and our household that I had nothing left for my career. I showed up, did my work competently but not exceptionally, and went home. My boss had mentioned more than once that I seemed checked out. She'd suggested I might want to see a doctor, that maybe I was depressed. Maybe I was. But I couldn't afford to think about that. I had a marriage to maintain, a husband to please, a role to perform. My friendships withered. I rarely saw Keisha anymore. Between work and Richard and housework, I had no time. When she did reach out, I made excuses. I was too tired. Richard had plans for us. I had so much to do around the house. Eventually, she stopped reaching out as much. I told myself it was fine, that this was just what happened when you got married. You grew apart from your friends. It was normal. But sometimes, late at night, lying next to Richard while he snored peacefully, because of course he slept well, he wasn't the one carrying the weight of our entire life, I would feel a deep, aching loneliness. I was married, living with someone, sharing a bed with them every night. And yet I'd never felt more alone. I started to forget who I was before Richard. Had I always been this anxious? This jumpy? This apologetic? Had I always second-guessed every word before I spoke? Had I always felt this small? No. I knew I hadn't. There had been a version of me who laughed easily, who had opinions and expressed them freely, who took up space without apology, who wore yellow sundresses and felt bright and alive. But I couldn't remember how to be her anymore. The night that would change everything started like any other Friday. I got home from work exhausted. We were in the middle of tax season and I'd been pulling 12-hour days, and immediately started my second shift. I changed out of my work clothes, pulled my hair back, and began the evening routine. Laundry first. I gathered Richard's work shirts, his gym clothes, the towels from our bathroom. I sorted them by color and fabric, started the first load. While that ran, I moved to the kitchen. I'd put chicken in the slow cooker that morning, but I still needed to make rice, cut vegetables for a salad, set the table. My phone rang as I was chopping cucumbers. Richard. Hey, I said, tucking. Jason's in town. Jason was Richard's college roommate, someone he saw maybe once a year. We're going out tonight. Probably hit a few bars, maybe a club. Oi, that's nice. Have fun. We'll probably be out late. Don't wait up. Should I save you dinner? Nah, we'll grab something out. I'll be back around midnight probably. Around midnight. That meant anywhere from midnight to 3 a.m. I'd learned to decode Richard's time estimates. Hey. See you later. He hung up without saying goodbye. That was normal too. I finished making dinner and ate alone at our dining table, scrolling through my phone without really seeing anything on the screen. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the washing machine. This was my life now. Working all day, doing housework all evening, eating alone, going to bed alone, existing in the margins of someone else's life. I tried to stay awake. I really did. I moved the laundry to the dryer, folded the clean clothes from the morning. I scrubbed the kitchen until it gleamed. I took a shower. I got into bed with my laptop, intending to watch something, anything to keep my eyes open. But exhaustion won. At 11:30, I fell asleep with the laptop still playing some forgettable show. The phone woke me. I fumbled for it in the darkness, saw Richard's name, saw the time, 1:47 a.m. Hello. My voice was thick with sleep. I need jollof rice. The words were slightly slurred. He was drunk. I sat up, trying to clear the fog from my brain. What? Jollof rice. I'm hungry. Make me jollof rice. Richard, it's almost 2 in the morning. I know what time it is. His voice sharpened, cutting through the alcohol haze with that familiar edge that made my stomach clench. I'm hungry. I want jollof rice. Have it ready when I get home. My mind raced through the logistics. Jollof rice from scratch would take at least an hour, maybe more. I'd have to dice tomatoes, onions, peppers. Cook the rice with the perfect blend of spices, the right ratio of liquid to grain. I didn't even know if I had all the ingredients. I'd have to check, and if I didn't, I'd have to, what? Drive to an all-night grocery store at 2 a.m.? Richard, I don't think I can. You can't. The words were laced with contempt. You can't make dinner for your husband? That's what you're telling me. It's not dinner time. It's 2 in the morning. I don't care what time it is. I work hard. I provide for us. And you can't even do this one thing for me? You can't make me a meal when I ask for it. Something in his tone, the entitlement, the expectation, the complete disregard for the fact that I'd also worked hard all day, that I'd also been providing, that I'd also been doing everything to keep our life running, made something inside me crack. It was a hairline fracture, barely visible. But it was there. Figure it out, Maya, he continued when I didn't respond. That's what you do, right? You take care of things? Or are you just completely useless now? The line went dead. I sat there in the dark, heart pounding, staring at my phone. Make jollof rice. At 2 in the morning. After working 12 hours. After cooking dinner he didn't eat. After doing laundry and cleaning and managing every aspect of our shared life while he was out drinking with his friend. Make jollof rice. Because he wanted it. Because he'd decided, drunk at a club, that this was what he needed. And I was supposed to jump to fulfill that need, regardless of my own exhaustion, my own needs, my own basic human limitations. The old me would have gotten up. Would have gone to the kitchen and checked the pantry and made it work somehow. Would have been standing at the stove when he came home, ready with a steaming plate of perfectly cooked rice, ready with an apology for hesitating, ready with the subservient smile that said, "Yes, husband. Whatever you need, husband. I exist to serve you, husband." But something had cracked. And through that crack something dangerous was seeping in, rage. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold, clarifying kind. The kind that makes you see clearly for the first time in years. I looked around our bedroom. At the hamper full of Richard's clothes that I would wash tomorrow. At the nightstand on his side, cluttered with his things while mine held only a lamp and my phone charger because he needed more space. At the closet where 3/4 of the hanging space was his, because he had more work clothes. At the entire life I'd built around making room for him while I made myself smaller and smaller and smaller. I turned off my phone. I got back into bed. And I did not make jollof rice. When Richard came home, at 2:47 a.m. according to the clock on my nightstand, I heard him stumble through the apartment. Heard him curse when he tripped over something. Heard him make his way to the kitchen, open the fridge, slam it closed. Paya. His voice echoed through the apartment. Paya. I kept my eyes closed. Kept my breathing steady. Pretended to be asleep. He came into the bedroom, turned on the overhead light. I didn't move. "I know you're awake," he said. But I wasn't sure he did know. He was very drunk. I kept up the pretense. And eventually he gave up. He turned off the light, got into bed still in his clothes, and within minutes was snoring. I lay there awake for hours, my heart racing, my mind spinning. I'd done it. I'd said no in the most passive way possible, but still. I'd refused him. I'd prioritized my own rest over his demand. And the world hadn't ended. The next morning was hell. Richard woke up hungover and furious. He didn't speak to me at all, just got up and left the apartment without a word. Didn't come back that night. Or the next night. Or the night after that. 3 days of silence. 3 days of not knowing where he was, if he was coming back, if this was finally it. 3 days of that familiar anxiety, that desperate need to fix things to make them right. But this time, underneath the anxiety, there was something else. Something new. A small voice that whispered, "Let him go. Let him stay gone. See how much better you breathe without him here." On the 4th day he came home. Didn't apologize. Didn't explain. Just walked in, put his keys on the counter and said, "We need groceries." And that was it. The incident was over, never to be discussed. We'd moved past it. Except we hadn't. I hadn't. That crack inside me had widened. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. That's when Rachel gave me the book. It was the following week. I was eating lunch alone in the break room. I always ate alone. Richard didn't like when I made plans with coworkers, said it was unprofessional to mix work and socializing too much. When Rachel came in. Rachel was one of those people who seemed to exist in full color while everyone else was washed out. She was loud, opinionated, confident in a way that I'd been taught was unladylike. She wore bright lipstick and bold prints and said exactly what she thought. Richard called women like Rachel difficult. I was supposed to be grateful I wasn't like them. Why, right? Rachel said even though we'd worked together for 3 years. She knew my name. This was her way of starting a conversation. "Right," I said. "Mind if I sit?" I did mind. I wanted to eat my sad desk salad in peace, to not have to make conversation, to not have to perform normalcy. But I said, "Sure." Rachel sat across from me and pulled out her own lunch. A vibrant-looking grain bowl with roasted vegetables. Everything about her seemed vibrant. Alive. I felt gray in comparison. "So I'm just going to be direct," Rachel said. "Because that's who I am. I've been watching you for 3 years now and I'm worried about you." I stiffened. "I'm fine." "Are you?" She wasn't aggressive, just direct like she'd said. "Because you don't seem fine. You seem like you're disappearing. And I know that might sound dramatic, but I've seen it before. My sister went through something similar." "I don't know what you mean." "Okay." Rachel took a bite of her lunch. "Hey. But just in case you ever do know what I mean, I want you to have this." She pulled a book from her bag and slid it across the table. The cover was simple, matte, the title direct. Reclaiming Yourself. A Guide to Finding Your Voice After Losing It. I stared at it like it might bite me. "It helped my sister," Rachel said. "When she was going through some things. Maybe it'll help you too. Or maybe you'll read it and think I'm completely off base, and that's fine too. No pressure either way." I don't need." "Just take it," Rachel said gently. "Read it or don't. Keep it or toss it. But take it." I took it. I don't know why. Maybe because refusing would have required more explanation than I had energy for. Maybe because some part of me, that part that had cracked and was letting in light, knew I needed it. I shoved it in my bag and finished my lunch quickly, claiming I had work to do. Rachel just nodded, didn't push. That book sat at the bottom of my bag for a week. I could feel it there, every time I reached in for my wallet or my keys. This weight, this presence. I was afraid of it, which was ridiculous. It was just a book. Words on paper. It couldn't hurt me. Except maybe it could. Maybe it could make me see things I wasn't ready to see. Maybe it could crack me open wider until I couldn't pretend anymore that everything was fine. It was a Sunday afternoon when I finally pulled it out. Richard had gone to the gym. He spent every Sunday afternoon there, said he needed his own time, his own space. It was fine. I liked when he was gone. I could breathe easier, move looser, exist without monitoring every action for his approval. I opened the book to the first page. This book is for women who have lost themselves in relationships. It began. If you're reading this, you probably already know something is wrong. You might not be able to name it yet. You might be in denial about how bad things really are. You might be making excuses, minimizing, telling yourself it's not that bad. But some part of you, some small part, picked up this book. And that part knows the truth. Trust that part. She's trying to save you. I started crying before I finished the first page. I read the entire book in one sitting. It was like someone had taken my life, my marriage, my slow disappearance, and written it all down with perfect clarity. Every page felt like a mirror held up to my face, showing me truths I'd been avoiding for 5 years. The book talked about different types of abuse. Physical, yes. But also emotional. Psychological. Financial. It talked about control masquerading as care. About isolation disguised as love. About manipulation presented as concern. There was a checklist in Chapter 3, Signs of an Emotionally Abusive Relationship. I read through it with shaking hands. Does your partner criticize you constantly but frame it as helping you improve? Make you feel like you're never good enough? Control what you wear, who you see, how you spend your time? Monitor your phone, your social media, your whereabouts? Use the silent treatment as punishment? Make you feel guilty for having needs or wants of your own? Blame you for their bad behavior? Make you feel crazy for being upset about how they treat you? Isolate you from friends and family? Have extreme mood swings that keep you on edge? Expect you to prioritize their needs above your own at all times? Make all the decisions in the relationship? Criticize your intelligence, your appearance, your abilities? Tell you that no one else would want you? Threaten to leave when you don't comply with their demands? Make you feel like you're walking on eggshells? I checked yes to every single question. Every single one. Have you ever been made to feel wrong for having emotions? Comment me if this story feels familiar. Like, share, and subscribe so more women know they're not alone. The book had a section on gaslighting, a term I'd heard but never really understood. It explained how abusers twist reality, make you doubt your own perceptions, your own memory, your own sanity. Did that really happen? Are you sure you're remembering that correctly? You're being too sensitive. That's not what I said. You're always trying to start fights. You're making a big deal out of nothing. How many times had Richard said these things to me? How many times had I walked away from a conversation feeling confused, uncertain, wondering if I was the problem? There was a chapter on how abusers choose their victims. It talked about love bombing, the intense, overwhelming courtship designed to sweep you off your feet, to make you feel special, to create dependency. The constant contact, the lavish attention, the declarations of love that come too fast, too soon. I remembered those early months with Richard. How flattered I'd been by his intensity. How I'd interpreted his constant need to be with me as proof of his love. How special I'd felt being not like other women. I'd thought I was being chosen. I'd actually been being groomed. The book explained the cycle of abuse. Tension building. Walking on eggshells trying to prevent the inevitable explosion. Incident. The actual abuse, whether verbal, emotional, or physical. Reconciliation. The apologies, the promises to change, the return to sweetness. Calm. A period of relative peace where you think maybe things will be different this time. And then back to tension building. Round and round and round. For 5 years I'd been on this merry-go-round from hell, and I'd thought it was just what marriage was like. One chapter was titled, Why Don't They Just Leave? I read it 3 times. It explained how leaving isn't simple. How abusers systematically destroy your self-esteem, your support system, your financial independence. How they make you believe you can't survive without them. How they make you believe that the abuse is your fault, that if you were just better, they'd be better. It explained how intermittent reinforcement, the unpredictable mix of kindness and cruelty, creates one of the strongest forms of psychological conditioning. Like a gambler at a slot machine, you keep trying, keep hoping, keep thinking the next pull will be the big win. The next day will be a good day. The next month will be better. Just one more try. The book talked about trauma bonding. How the intensity of an abusive relationship, the highs and lows, the fear and relief, the breaking down and building back up, creates a powerful, addictive connection. How leaving can feel like withdrawal. How you can know intellectually that you should go, that you deserve better, and still feel chemically compelled to stay. It explained why victims often return to their abusers multiple times. Why we make excuses for them. Why we believe their promises to change. Why we take on responsibility for their behavior. Because they've conditioned us to. Because they've systematically reprogrammed us to believe that our worth is tied to their approval, that our reality is whatever they say it is, that we are fundamentally unlovable and should be grateful they tolerate us at all. The book explained me to myself in a way I'd never been able to do on my own. But the most important section was the last one, reclaiming yourself. It started with a question: who were you before? Before him. Before you lost yourself. Before you started walking on eggshells and apologizing for existing. Who are you? There was an exercise. Make a list of at least 20 things that used to bring you joy. Don't stop until you have 20. Some will be obvious. Others you may have to dig deep to remember. I got out a notebook and started writing. Painting. Sunday afternoons in my childhood bedroom, canvas propped on my easel, music playing, losing hours to color and creation. Dancing. In my apartment, in clubs, at family gatherings. Moving my body without self-consciousness, just pure joy in movement. Singing. In the shower, in the car, while cooking. My voice filling space without shame. Reading fiction. Getting lost in other worlds, other lives, other possibilities. Writing. I used to journal every night, processing my day, my thoughts, my dreams. Hiking. Finding trails around Atlanta, feeling the sun on my skin, pushing my body, earning the view. Cooking experimental meals. Trying new recipes, making a mess, not caring if it turned out perfect. Thrift shopping. The hunt for unique pieces, the thrill of a good find. Wearing bold colors. Yellow, coral, bright blue, colors that made me feel alive. Late night conversations. Staying up until 2 a.m. with friends, talking about everything and nothing. Spontaneous adventures. Last-minute road trips, random museum visits, yes, and energy. Being silly. Dancing like an idiot, making bad puns, laughing until my stomach hurt. Political debates. Caring passionately about justice. Arguing my points, engaging with ideas. Photography. Capturing moments, seeing the world through a lens, creating beauty from the everyday. Baking. Sunday morning cinnamon rolls, birthday cakes for friends, the alchemy of flour and sugar and love. Yoga. The meditation, the stretch, the connection between mind and body. Music festivals. The energy, the crowds, the live sound washing over me. Board game nights. The competition, the laughter, the community. Trying new restaurants. Being adventurous with food, exploring neighborhoods, making an evening an experience. Sleeping in on weekends. Pure guilt-free rest. I looked at my list and felt grief wash over me. I hadn't done any of these things in years. Not one. I'd been so busy being Richard's wife that I'd forgotten how to be Maya. The book had another exercise. For each item on your list, write down why you stopped doing it. I did. Painting. Richard said the smell of paint gave him headaches. He needed the spare room for his home gym equipment. Dancing. Richard said I looked ridiculous. That I needed to act my age. Singing. Richard said my voice was annoying. He needed peace and quiet when he was home. Reading fiction. Richard said novels were a waste of time. That I should read something useful. Writing. Richard found my journal once, read it without permission, got angry about my negativity. Hiking. Richard didn't like hiking, so we never did it. Going alone felt like I was being selfish with my free time. Cooking experimental meals. Richard wanted traditional food, familiar dishes, nothing weird. Thrift shopping. Richard said it was shopping for other people's garbage. That I was too old for that. Wearing bold colors. Richard preferred me in neutrals, muted tones. Said bright colors looked attention-seeking. Late night conversations. Richard needed me home on his schedule, available to him. Spontaneous adventures. Richard said I was irresponsible. That plans needed to be made in advance. Being silly. Richard said I was childish. That I needed to be more mature, more serious. Political debates. Richard said I was too emotional. That I didn't understand how the world really worked. Photography. Richard bought me a camera for my birthday, then complained when I used it. Said it was a waste. Baking. Richard said I made too much mess. That I should clean as I go. That the kitchen needed to stay pristine. Yoga. Richard said yoga was for hippies and housewives with nothing better to do. Music festivals. Richard thought they were crowded, dirty, full of those kinds of people. Board game nights. Richard didn't like my friends. Said they were immature. Trying new restaurants. Richard had his favorite places. He didn't see the point in going somewhere unknown. Sleeping in on weekends. Richard woke up early. Expected me to as well. Said sleeping in was lazy. Richard. Every single thing I'd stopped doing I'd stopped because of him. Because he'd made me feel ashamed of it. Because he'd criticized it. Because he'd made it clear that choosing these things meant I was choosing wrong, that I had systematically dismantled my entire self to make room for him. And he hadn't just let me, he'd demanded it. I sat there with my list, tears streaming down my face, and felt 5 years of suppressed rage finally surface. How dare he? How dare he make me believe that who I was fundamentally was wrong? That my joy was annoying. That my interests were stupid. That my voice was too loud, my laugh too much. My very existence something that needed to be managed and controlled and minimized. How dare he take a whole, complete, vibrant person and systematically break her down into something small and fearful and silent? How dare I let him? Well, the book was clear about this. I didn't let him. He did this to me. With manipulation and gaslighting and systematic psychological abuse. This wasn't my fault. His behavior was his choice, his responsibility, his failing. But what I did next, that was my choice. The book had a chapter on making a plan. It was clear. Leaving an abuser requires preparation. You need financial resources. You need a support system. You need to rebuild your sense of self before you can physically leave, or you'll be vulnerable to going back. It outlines steps. Reconnect with your support system. Find people who truly care about you. Start saying no. Practice setting boundaries in small ways. Do things that bring you joy even if your partner disapproves. Document the abuse. Keep a journal. Save texts and emails. Build financial independence. Open your own bank account if you don't have one. Talk to a therapist who specializes in abuse. Make a safety plan for when you're ready to leave. Trust yourself. Your perceptions are valid. Your feelings matter. You deserve better. I read this list over and over. It felt impossible. Felt like climbing a mountain. It felt like I was already so tired, so worn down. How could I possibly do all of this? But I had to try. Because the alternative was spending the rest of my life like this. And I couldn't. I just couldn't anymore. That small crack inside me had become a chasm. And through it I could see light. I started with the smallest step possible. I texted Keisha. It had been 8 months since we'd really talked. 8 months of excuses and cancelled plans and gradual drifting. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a full 5 minutes before I finally typed, "Hey, I miss you. Can we get coffee?" Her response came within seconds. Yes. When? I've missed you so much. We made plans for the following Saturday. Richard asked where I was going. Coffee with Keisha. I said, my heart pounding. Keisha. He said her name like it tasted bad. You haven't seen her in months. Why now? Because I miss her. Because she's my friend. I thought we were going to run errands together Saturday. We can run errands Sunday. But I wanted to do them Saturday. His jaw was tight. Warning signs I'd learned to read like a weather report. The old me would have caved immediately. Would have said, "Oh, okay, let me reschedule." Would have texted Keisha with another excuse. The new me, the me that was starting to emerge from that crack, said, "I'm having coffee with Keisha Saturday. We can do errands Sunday, or you can do them yourself Saturday. Your choice." He stared at me for a long moment. I braced myself for the explosion, for the silent treatment, for some form of punishment. He just said, "Fine. Whatever." And walked away. I stood there shaking. I'd done it. I'd set a boundary and held it. The world hadn't ended. Saturday came. I almost canceled 3 times. But I forced myself to get dressed. I wore a coral shirt bright against my skin, fuck what Richard thought, and drove to the coffee shop. Keisha was already there. When she saw me, she jumped up and pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. "Girl," she said, pulling back to look at me, "I have missed you so much. Look at you. That color is gorgeous on you." We got our drinks and settled into a corner booth. And then she just looked at me. Really looked. "Okay," she said, "real talk time. Are you okay?" And I mean really okay, not fine okay. I opened my mouth to say yes, to give my standard reassurance. But what came out was, "No. I'm not okay. I haven't been okay for a long time." And then I started crying. Right there in the coffee shop I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Not quiet, polite tears. Big, ugly, body-shaking sobs. Keisha didn't say anything. Just moved to my side of the booth, put her arm around me and let me cry. When I finally calmed down enough to speak, I told her some of it. Not everything, I wasn't ready for everything, but enough. The constant criticism. The walking on eggshells. The way I disappeared from my own life. I had a feeling, Keisha said quietly. I didn't want to push because I know how that can backfire, but I had a feeling something was wrong. I'm so sorry, Maya. I should have tried harder to stay in touch. It's not your fault. I was the one who kept canceling, kept making excuses. Because he made you. I guess. Yeah. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? I don't know yet, I said. But I'm starting to figure it out. I'm starting to wake up. We stayed at that coffee shop for 4 hours. Keisha told me about her life, her new job, the guy she'd been dating. I told her about the book, about the realization that I'd been living in an abusive relationship. About how I was starting to make a plan. Whatever you need, Keisha said when we finally left. Seriously. A place to stay, money, someone to go with you to get your stuff, a person to call at 3 a.m. when you're scared. Whatever you need, I'm here. I hugged her again, holding on tight to this lifeline I'd almost lost. That was step 1. Step 2 was harder. I started saying no. Small things at first. Richard wanted Chinese food, I wanted Thai. I said, I want Thai. We can order from both places or we can take turns choosing. We ordered from both places. He was annoyed, but he didn't escalate. Richard wanted to watch an action movie. I wanted to watch a romantic comedy. I said, I'm watching my movie tonight. You can watch yours on your laptop or tomorrow we can watch yours. I watched my movie. He sulked, but he didn't fight it. Each small victory made the next one possible. I started doing things that brought me joy, consequences be damned. I went to an art supply store and bought paints, brushes, a canvas. I set up in our spare room. Yes, the room Richard had claimed for his gym equipment that he barely used. I moved some of his weights aside and set up my easel. When he came home and found me painting, he frowned. I thought we talked about this. The smell gives me headaches. Open a window, I said, not looking up from my canvas. Or go out. I'm painting. He stood there for a moment, clearly trying to decide how to respond. Finally, he just left. Went to his friend's house for the evening. And I painted for 4 glorious hours. I made a mess. I got paint on my clothes, on my hands, on the drop cloth I'd laid down. And I didn't care. For 4 hours I was just Maya, creating something for the pure joy of creation. It felt like coming back to life. I started going to a weekly yoga class. I'd found one that met Tuesday evenings and I informed Richard I'd be going. Every week, he asked. Every week. That's a lot of time away from home. It's 90 minutes. Once a week. That's not a lot. He looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find a good reason to. Fine. That first class I cried in Savasana. The teacher had us lie there, breathing, releasing tension, and I felt 5 years of holding everything and finally start to loosen. My body remembered what it felt like to stretch, to breathe deeply, to take up space without apology. I kept a journal again. I hid it, I'd learned that lesson, but I wrote every night. I documented what Richard said, what he did, how it made me feel. Having it in writing made it harder to gaslight myself later. Made it harder to minimize or forget or convince myself things weren't that bad. Things were that bad. Reading back through my entries made that crystal clear. Today Richard said I looked frumpy. When I defended my outfit, he said I was being too sensitive. Today Richard went through my phone. When I objected, he said married people shouldn't have secrets. Today Richard criticized my cooking. Said his mother made better pot roast. When I got quiet, he said I was being dramatic. Today Richard told me I was lucky he put up with me. That most men wouldn't. Page after page of paper cuts. Individually small. Cumulatively devastating. I started therapy. I found a therapist online who specialized in abusive relationships. Dr. Patricia Williams was a black woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. Tell me why you're here, she said in our first session. I told her about Richard. About the book. About finally seeing clearly what my life had become. Do you think you're in an abusive relationship? She asked. Yes, I said. The word felt huge in my mouth. Yes, I do. That's important, Dr. Williams said. Naming it is the first step. Many women resist that label. They think abuse has to be physical, dramatic, obvious. But emotional abuse is just as damaging. Sometimes more so because there are no visible bruises. He's never hit me, I said. Physical violence isn't the only kind of violence. What he's doing to your psyche, your self-esteem, your sense of reality, that's violence too. We talked for the full hour. At the end, Dr. Williams said, I want you to know that leaving is possible. It will be hard. It will take time. But it's possible. And I'll help you get there. I left that session feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because someone believed me, validated me, saw what I'd been living through. Heavier because I now had to actually do something about it. I opened a separate bank account. I'd been contributing to our joint account, but I started diverting some of my paycheck to my own private account. Just 10% at first, then 15%. I'd learned that financial independence was crucial for leaving safely. Richard noticed the decrease in my contributions. Why is your deposit smaller? He asked, showing me his phone with our joint account pulled up. I opened my own account, I said, proud of how steady my voice was. Why would you do that? Because I wanted to, but we're married. We share finances. We share some finances, but I'm allowed to have my own account too. This is bullshit, Maya. His face was flushing red. Are you planning something? Are you planning to leave? I'm planning to have my own financial independence. That's not the same thing as leaving. Except it was, and we both knew it. This was me preparing. This was me getting ready. You can't do this, he said. That if you're learning to find your voice again, this channel is for you. Subscribe for stories of healing and strength. Like and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Actually, I can. It's my money. I earned it. He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. The Maya he knew didn't talk back like this. Didn't stand her ground. Didn't assert her rights. But I was becoming a different Maya. The one who had been buried was starting to claw her way back to the surface. This Maya was done being small. 3 months after I first read that book, things came to a head. Richard had been getting increasingly frustrated with my changes. His tactics were becoming more obvious, more desperate. When being cold and withdrawn didn't work, he tried being sweet. When being sweet didn't work, he tried being angry. When being angry didn't work, he tried guilt. You've changed, he said one evening. We were in the living room. Me reading, him watching TV. Or pretending to watch TV. Really, he was watching me, trying to figure out what was happening. Yes, I said simply. Why? What happened? I remembered who I was before you convinced me to be someone else. His jaw tightened. I never convinced you to be anyone. You're choosing to be difficult. I'm choosing to be myself. Yourself is a bitch lately. The word hung in the air between us. He'd never called me that before. Not directly. He'd called other women that. Women who didn't submit, who had opinions, who took up space. But never me. Till now. If standing up for myself makes me a bitch, I said, then I guess I'm a bitch. He stood up, towering over me. Not threatening, not exactly, but using his size to intimidate. You think you're so smart now. Reading your little books, going to therapy, acting like you're better than this marriage. I'm not better than the marriage, Richard. The marriage is worse than I deserve. You don't deserve shit. I gave you everything. A home, financial security, my name. And this is how you repay me? By becoming some feminist nightmare. You gave me a cage and called it a castle. Fuck you, Maya. No, Richard. Fuck you. We stared at each other. I was shaking, but I didn't back down. Didn't apologize. Didn't try to smooth things over. He left. Slammed out of the apartment without another word. I sat there in the silence, my heart pounding. I'd done it. I'd said the thing I'd been too afraid to say for 5 years. I'd stood up to him directly, clearly, without apology. And I hadn't died. The world hadn't ended. I was still here. He came back 3 hours later. I was in bed reading. He stood in the doorway of the bedroom and I could smell the alcohol on him. We need to talk, he said. Okay. I don't understand what's happening. You're not the woman I married. Yes, I am. This is who I always was. You just convinced me to hide her. That's not true. I never. Yes, you did. With every criticism. Every time you made me feel stupid or wrong or too much. Every time you punished me with silence. Every time you made me shrink to make yourself feel big. You absolutely did. You're remembering things wrong. No, Richard. I'm remembering them clearly for the first time in years. He sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. I don't want to lose you. Then you should have treated me better when you had me. I can change. Please, let me try. We can go to counseling. I'd been prepared for this. Dr. Williams had warned me. When they feel you slipping away, they promise change. They promise therapy. They promise the moon. No, I said. I don't want couples counseling. Why not? Because this isn't a relationship problem. It's an abuse problem. And couples therapy doesn't fix abuse. It just gives the abuser new tools. Abuse. He looked up, his face a mask of shock. You think I've abused you? Yes. I never hit you. Never raised a hand to you. Abuse isn't just physical, Richard. So what? I'm abusive because I had opinions? Because I expected you to be a partner. You're abusive because you systematically destroyed my self-esteem, isolated me from my friends and family, controlled every aspect of my life, and made me feel like I was crazy for being unhappy about it. That's not what I did. Yes. It is. He started crying. Real tears streaming down his face. Please don't leave me. I love you. I'll do anything. I felt a pang of sympathy, old conditioning, years of training to manage his emotions, to fix his pain. But I pushed it down. If you loved me, you would have treated me better all along. I didn't know. I didn't know you felt this way. I tried to tell you. So many times. You didn't listen. You never listened. We sat there in silence. Him crying. Me waiting for what came next. Is this really it? He finally asked. Are you really done? I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I'd been building toward for 3 months. I want a divorce. The words felt huge. Final. Terrifying and liberating at the same time. Richard's head snapped up. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Over what? Some book you read? Some ideas your therapist put in your head? Over 5 years of being made to feel worthless. Over 5 years of walking on eggshells. Over 5 years of losing myself piece by piece. That's what. We can fix this. We can work on it. I don't want to fix it, Richard. I want to be free of it. Free of me, you mean? Yes. He stood up, his face cycling through emotions. Shock, hurt, anger, calculation. You'll regret this. Maybe. But it will be my regret. You won't make it without me. I made it before you. I'll make it after you. No one else will want you. You're damaged goods now. And there was the mask slipping. The real Richard underneath the charm and the tears. Get out, I said quietly. This is my apartment too. Then I'll get out. But one of us is leaving. Tonight. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then he grabbed his wallet and keys and left. I sat there in the silence, shaking. I'd done it. I'd said the words. I want a divorce. There was no taking it back now. I called Keisha. She answered on the first ring. I told him, I said. I asked for a divorce. Oh my God. Are you okay? Do you need me to come over? No. Yes. I don't know. I'm shaken. I'm coming over. Pack a bag. You're staying with me tonight. Keisha, you don't have to. I'm already in my car. Pack a bag. Be ready in 20 minutes. I did as she said. I threw clothes into a duffel bag, grabbed my toiletries, my laptop, my journal. The important documents I'd already scanned and stored in the cloud, but I grabbed the originals too. Birth certificate, passport, social security card. When Keisha arrived, Richard still wasn't back. She helped me carry my bags to her car, neither of us speaking until we were inside with the doors locked. You did it, she said, squeezing my hand. You actually did it. I did it, I repeated, testing the words. Oh God, Keisha. I did it. And then I started laughing. Not happy laughter, not sad laughter. Something in between. Relief and terror and freedom and fear all mixed together. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Richard called constantly. Texted constantly. Showed up at Keisha's apartment until she threatened to call the police. He cycled through every tactic in the playbook. Anger, sadness, promises, threats, manipulation. You're overreacting. You're throwing away 5 years over nothing. I'll change, I promise. You're being selfish. Think about what you're giving up. You'll never find anyone else. I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. You're making a huge mistake. Everyone will think you're crazy. Your mother always liked me. You're going to regret this for the rest of your life. On and on and on. An endless barrage of manipulation designed to pull me back in. Dr. Williams told me this was normal. It's called the extinction burst, she explained in our emergency session. When the old tactics stop working, abusers escalate. They get more intense, more desperate, trying anything to regain control. This is actually a good sign. It means he knows he's losing his grip on you. It doesn't feel good, I said. I know. But you're doing everything right. Keep documenting. Keep blocking. Keep your boundaries firm. He'll eventually realize it's not working. I filed for divorce. I found a lawyer, a woman named Angela Chin who specialized in cases involving domestic abuse. She was sharp, efficient, and didn't waste time asking if I was sure. I've seen this 1,000 times, Angela said. He's going to fight you on everything. Guys like this can't stand losing control, and divorce is the ultimate loss of control. So prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. He was right. Richard contested everything. The division of assets, the separation of finances, who would keep the apartment. He dragged it out at every opportunity, filing motion after motion, demanding mediation after mediation. He's trying to exhaust you, Angela explained. Trying to make you give up and come back. Don't let him win. I didn't. But God, it was hard that I moved into a studio apartment in a different neighborhood. It was small, just one room plus a bathroom and a tiny kitchen. But it was mine. All mine. I could paint the walls if I wanted. Could play music at any volume. Could come and go as I pleased without explaining myself to anyone. The first night in that apartment, I lay on my air mattress. My real furniture was still at the old place, subject to the divorce proceedings, and cried. Not sad tears. Happy tears. Relief tears. Free tears. I was starting over at 31 with almost nothing. And I'd never been happier. I reconnected with my mother. I drove to her house one Sunday and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her face growing sadder and sadder. When I finished, she pulled me into her arms and said, I knew. I didn't know how bad it was, but I knew something was wrong. I'm so sorry I didn't push harder. It's not your fault, Mama. I know. But I'm your mother. I should have protected you. I'm protecting myself now. She pulled back to look at me. Yes, you are. I'm so proud of you, baby. This is the bravest thing you've ever done. I started building a new life. Not just recovering from the old one, but actively creating something new. I got promoted at work. Without the constant stress and anxiety of my marriage, my performance had skyrocketed. My boss noticed. Maya, I don't know what's changed, she said, but you're on fire lately. I want to move you up to senior accountant. More responsibility, better pay, actual career trajectory. You interested? Yes, I said immediately. Absolutely yes. For the first time in 5 years, I felt excited about my career. About my future. About possibilities. I joined a women's support group for survivors of domestic abuse. It met every Thursday evening in a church basement. The first time I walked in, I almost turned around and left. But then a woman smiled at me. Her name was Jennifer. She was 42. She'd been out of her abusive marriage for 3 years. And said, first time. Yes, I admitted. Scary, huh? Terrifying. Come sit. You're safe here. And I was. For 90 minutes every Thursday, I sat in a circle with other women who understood. Who had lived it. Who didn't need me to explain or justify or prove anything. They just knew that I heard stories worse than mine. I heard stories similar to mine. I heard stories that made me grateful and stories that made me weep. And I shared my own story, piece by piece, week by week. The women celebrated my small victories. Cheered when I signed the lease on my apartment. Applauded when I told them about my promotion. Held space for me when I had bad days, when I missed Richard, not the real Richard but the fantasy version I'd fallen in love with. When I felt overwhelmed by the process of rebuilding. It gets easier, one woman told me. Not easy but easier. One day you'll realize you haven't thought about him in hours. Then days. Then weeks. And then you'll realize you're not just surviving anymore. You're living. I painted again. My studio apartment became my studio in every sense. I set up an easel by the window where the light was best. I painted abstracts in bold colors. All the colors Richard had said were too much, too loud, too attention-seeking. I painted my rage and my grief and my joy and my freedom. A coworker saw one of my paintings. I'd posted it on Instagram, something I hadn't done in years because Richard monitored my social media, and asked if I'd sell it. I named a price thinking she'd say no. She said yes. That first sale felt like validation. Like proof that I had value beyond being someone's wife. That I could create something people wanted, something worth paying for. I started taking commissions. Small ones at first, then bigger. The extra money helped with legal fees, with furnishing my apartment, with building my nest egg. I dated, tentatively. Nothing serious, I wasn't ready for serious. But coffee dates, dinners, getting to know new people. Remembering that there were men in the world who weren't Richard. Men who listened when I talked. Men who respected my boundaries. Men who made me laugh without making me small. Not every date was great. Some guys were duds. Some had red flags of their own. But I'd learned to spot them early now. I'd learned to trust my instincts. And I had no problem walking away. I'm not settling ever again, I told Keisha over brunch one Sunday. I'd rather be alone forever than feel that trapped again. Good, she said. But you won't be alone forever. The right person will come along. Someone who appreciates you, all of you, without trying to change you. Maybe. Or maybe I'll just be happily single. Either way, I'm good. And I meant it. I genuinely meant it. The divorce was finally finalized 8 months after I'd asked for it. 8 months of fighting, of legal fees, of Richard trying every tactic to drag me back or drag out the process. But it was done. I was free. Legally, officially, completely free. Angela called me with the news. It's over. Judge signed off on everything. You're a free woman, Maya. I hung up the phone and sat in my studio apartment. My apartment, and felt a weight I'd been carrying for 6 years finally lift. I called my mother. I called Keisha. I called Rachel. I told them all, it's done. I'm divorced. I'm free. Everyone offered to take me out to celebrate. And we did. That weekend we went to a nice restaurant, drank too much wine, toasted to new beginnings. But the real celebration happened that night, alone in my apartment. I put on music. Loud music that Richard would have complained about. I danced around my space, with pure, unfiltered joy. I sang at the top of my lungs. I laughed until my stomach hurt. And then I sat on my couch, looked around at the life I'd built and thought, I did this. I saved myself. Year 1 after the divorce was about healing. I continued therapy with Dr. Williams. We worked through the trauma, the gaslighting, the ways Richard had reprogrammed my thinking. We untangled the lies from the truth, the abuse from love. You know what cognitive dissonance is? Dr. Williams asked me one session. When you hold two contradictory beliefs? Exactly. And that's what happens in abusive relationships. Part of you knows it's bad. But another part remembers the good times, holds on to hope, believes the promises. Your brain literally can't reconcile these two truths. That the person you love is hurting you. So it creates justifications, minimizations, excuses. How do you get past that? By accepting that both things can be true. You can have loved him and he can have been abusive. You can have good memories and the relationship can have been harmful. You can miss aspects of being partnered and be glad you left. The goal isn't to make it black and white. The goal is to accept the complexity while still honoring your truth. That you deserved better. That helped. A lot of things helped. Time helped. Distance helped. Building a new life helped. I finished my yoga teacher training. I'd been taking classes regularly and my instructor suggested I might enjoy teaching. So I signed up for the certification course. Something I never would have done while married to Richard, who would have called it a waste of time and money. Teaching yoga became my meditation, my ministry, my gift to others. Helping people connect with their bodies, find strength, breathe through discomfort. It was healing for me as much as for them. I traveled. Just small trips at first. A weekend in Savannah, a long weekend in Charleston. Then bigger. A week in Mexico, 10 days in Costa Rica. I went alone, which terrified me at first. But being alone in a new place, navigating by myself, making my own decisions without having to check in with anyone, it was the most liberating feeling in the world. In Costa Rica, I took a surfing lesson. I was terrible at it, wiping out over and over, swallowing seawater, getting pummeled by waves. But I laughed the whole time. Because I was trying something new, something scary, something completely outside my comfort zone. And I was doing it for no reason except that it brought me joy. The old Maya, Richard's Maya, would never have done that. She would have worried about looking foolish, about failing, about taking time away from obligations. She would have let fear stop her. The new Maya, the real Maya, paddled back out after every wipeout and tried again. Year 2 after the divorce was about thriving. I moved into a bigger apartment. Still not huge, but a 1-bedroom with actual space. I decorated it exactly how I wanted. Bright colors, eclectic furniture, art everywhere. Looked like a Pinterest board threw up, and I loved every inch of it. I started hosting dinner parties. Just small things, 6 or 8 people potluck style. But filling my space with laughter and conversation and community felt like the ultimate fuck you to Richard, who had systematically isolated me. One of my dinner guests was a guy named David. He was a friend of Rachel's, a software engineer, funny and kind and easy to talk to. We started dating casually. He knew about my marriage, about what I'd been through. He was patient, respectful of my boundaries, never pushed for more than I was ready to give. "I'm not in a hurry," he said when I told him I was taking things slow. "I like you. I like spending time with you. We can move at whatever pace feels right." That alone. A man who respected my timeline, who didn't try to rush or pressure or manipulate, was revolutionary. David wasn't perfect. No one is. But he was good. He was kind. He made me laugh. He never made me feel small. We'd been dating for 6 months when he met my mother. I was nervous. The last time I'd brought a man home had been Richard, and we all knew how that ended. But my mother liked David immediately. Later, in the kitchen while David was in the bathroom, she pulled me aside. "This one's different," she said. "I know. Does he treat you right?" "He does, Mama. I promise." He studied my face. Whatever she saw there satisfied her. "Good. You deserve that. You deserve someone who treats you like you're precious." I started writing. Not just journaling, but really writing. Essays about my experience, about emotional abuse, about the process of leaving and healing. I started a blog, posted them publicly. The response was overwhelming. Other women reached out, thanking me for putting words to their experiences. Telling me my story gave them courage. Asking for advice, for resources, for hope. I became an informal advocate. I volunteered with the local domestic violence shelter, leading support groups, sharing my story. If I could help even one woman get out sooner than I did, avoid even 1 year of what I'd endured, it would be worth it. Rachel nominated me for a local Women's Leadership Award. "For your advocacy work," she said. "For using your voice to help others." I didn't win, but being nominated, being recognized, felt validating in a way I hadn't expected. My pain had purpose now. My struggle meant something beyond just survival. I was thriving. Actually, genuinely thriving. 2 years and 4 months after my divorce was finalized, I ran into Richard. I was at Target of all places, just doing normal weekend errands, buying toilet paper and laundry detergent and the other mundane necessities of life. I rounded a corner in the cleaning supplies aisle, and there he was. My first instinct was to run. To turn around, abandon my cart, flee the store. My heart started racing, my palms got sweaty, all the old fear responses kicking in. But then I made myself breathe. Made myself remember he has no power over me anymore. He's just a man I used to know. Just another person in Target buying cleaning supplies. "Maya," he said, seeing me. He looked older. More tired. But still Richard. "Hello, Richard. How are you?" As if we were old friends catching up, not ex-spouses whose marriage had been a slow-motion disaster. "I'm good," I said. And meant it. "Yeah. That's good. That's great." He shifted uncomfortably. "You look good. Really good." I was wearing yoga pants and an old paint-stained t-shirt. No makeup. Hair in a messy bun. But I felt good, and apparently it showed. "Thanks." An awkward silence. Then, "I've thought about you. About us. About everything." "Okay. I've been in therapy." He said it like he expected me to be impressed. "Working on myself. Learning about things. About how I was in the relationship." "Good. That's good, Richard." I wanted to apologize. For, everything. The way I treated you. I didn't understand it at the time, but I do now. I was controlling. I was emotionally abusive. And I'm sorry. 2 years ago I would have killed for this apology. Would have sobbed with relief that he finally saw it, finally admitted it, finally took responsibility. Now I just felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not vindication. Just a mild sense of okay, thanks, moving on now. "I appreciate you saying that," I said. Do you think we could maybe get coffee sometime? Talk." And there was The real agenda. The apology was just the hook. No, I said gently but firmly. I don't think that's a good idea. We don't have to talk about getting back together or anything, just, I miss talking to you. Richard, I've moved on. Completely. I'm not interested in revisiting the past. His face fell. I watched him cycle through emotions, disappointment, hurt, a flash of that old anger. So that's it? Just, no. That's it. I wish you well. I hope therapy helps you. But I'm not part of your healing journey. I walked away. Just like that. Left him standing in the cleaning aisle at Target and I walked away. My hands were shaking as I finished my shopping. But not from fear. From pride. From the pure fucking satisfaction of having that encounter and not being pulled back in. Not feeling guilty. Not second-guessing myself. I'd faced Richard on neutral ground and I'd been fine. Better than fine. I'd been strong. When I got home I called Dr. Williams. I saw Richard today, I told her. How did that go? I told her the whole story. When I finished she said, Maya, do you realize what a milestone this is? 2 years ago, even 1 year ago, that encounter would have wrecked you for days. Today you handled it perfectly. You set your boundary, you walked away and you're okay. I'm more than okay, I realized. I'm actually proud of myself. You should be. This is what healing looks like. That night I wrote a blog post about the encounter. About how running into your abuser can be triggering, terrifying, set you back. But also about how, if you've done the work, you might find that they no longer have power over you. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of women commenting, messaging, thanking me for sharing. Telling their own stories of running into exes and how it affected them. One woman wrote, I saw my ex-husband at our daughter's graduation last month. 3 years since the divorce and I still felt like I couldn't breathe when I saw him. Reading your post helps me believe that someday I'll be as strong as you are. I wrote back, you're already stronger than you think. You left. You survived. You're raising your daughter. That's everything. The rest is just details. 3 years post-divorce I did something I never thought I'd do. I wrote a letter to Rachel. Not an email, an actual handwritten letter. I bought nice stationery, sat down with a good pen and wrote. Dear Rachel. 3 years ago you gave me a book. At the time I didn't understand why. I was resistant, defensive, not ready to see what you were trying to show me. That book saved my life. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's true. It opened a door I didn't even know existed. It showed me that what I was experiencing had a name, that I wasn't crazy, that I deserved better. You saw me when I couldn't see myself. You cared enough to risk offending me, making me uncomfortable, potentially ruining our work relationship. You handed me a lifeline even though you couldn't be sure I'd grab it. I grabbed it. And I climbed out. I'm writing to say thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for caring. Thank you for giving me that book and planting a seed that would eventually grow into my freedom. You saved me, Rachel. You and that book and all the people who showed up for me after. But it started with you. So thank you. From the bottom of my healing heart, thank you. With love and gratitude, Maya. Rachel cried when she read it. She told me later, over drinks at our favorite bar. I didn't know if I should give you that book, she admitted. I went back and forth for weeks. I was worried you'd be offended, that you'd think I was overstepping, that I'd make things worse. You made things better. You gave me the push I needed. You did the hard part. You did all of it. I just handed you a book. You handed me hope. That's everything. We sat there, 2 women bonded by my trauma and recovery, and I felt such overwhelming gratitude for her friendship. For Keisha's friendship. For Dr. Williams's guidance. For my mother's support. For all the people who had held me up when I couldn't stand on my own. Recovery isn't linear, I'd learned. There were still hard days. Days when I felt sad or angry or triggered by something small. Days when I missed being partnered, even though I didn't miss Richard specifically. Days when I questioned whether I'd made the right choice, even though I knew I had. But the good days far outnumbered the bad. And even the bad days were manageable now. I had tools, coping mechanisms, a support system. I had myself fully present and accounted for, no longer a ghost in my own life. I thought about that woman who had stood in her kitchen at 2 a.m., being demanded to make jollof rice, feeling that first crack open inside her. That woman who had been so lost, so small, so defeated. I wanted to go back and tell her, you're going to make it. It's going to be hard, but you're going to make it. And on the other side of this nightmare is a life more beautiful than you can imagine. A life that's truly yours. But I couldn't go back. None of us can. All we can do is move forward, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one boundary at a time. And that's what I did. That's what I'm still doing. Last week I got a message on Instagram from a woman I didn't know. Her name was Jessica. She'd found my blog through a friend, had read all my posts and was reaching out because she saw herself in my story. "I'm living it right now," she wrote. "Everything you described, the walking on eggshells, the constant criticism, the feeling like I'm going crazy. I've been married for 3 years and I feel like I've disappeared. I don't know if I can leave. I'm scared. I don't know who I am anymore without him. But your story gives me hope that maybe someday I could find myself again. Can I ask you something? How did you know it was really time to go? How did you know you weren't giving up too soon?" I stared at that message for a long time before responding. Because I remembered being that woman. Desperate for someone to tell me I wasn't crazy, that my feelings were valid, that leaving was okay. I wrote back, "Jessica, thank you for reaching out. I know how much courage it takes to send that message. You asked how I knew it was time to go. The truth is I knew long before I left. I knew every time he made me feel small. I knew every time I apologized for existing. I knew every time I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. The question isn't, how did you know? The question is, when did you believe you deserved better? Because you do deserve better. You deserve to feel safe in your own home. You deserve to have opinions and express them freely. You deserve to have friends and interests and a life outside of managing someone else's emotions. You deserve to take up space without apology. You're not giving up too soon. You're not overreacting. You're not too sensitive. Your feelings are valid. Your experience is real. And you deserve better than what you're getting. Leaving is possible. It will be hard. It will take planning and courage and support. But it's possible. I'm going to give you the same resources that saved me. The book, Reclaiming Yourself. The National Domestic Violence Hotline. 1-800-799-7233. Dr. Patricia Williams's website. My personal email if you ever need to talk to someone who gets it. You don't have to decide anything today. You don't have to leave tomorrow. But please start taking care of yourself. Start rebuilding your support system. Start remembering who you were before him. That woman is still there, Jessica. She's just been buried. But she's strong and she's waiting and she's worth fighting for. You're worth fighting for. With solidarity and hope, Maya. Don't give up. Not on yourself. Not on the possibility of a better life. Not on the knowledge that you deserve more than you're getting. Subscribe. Like. Share your voice in the comments. Your story matters. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not asking for too much. You deserve safety, respect, dignity, and love. Real love, the kind that makes you bigger, not smaller. And you can have it. Start with one small crack. See where it leads. I promise you, freedom is possible. I'm living proof. This story is dedicated to every woman who has ever felt like a ghost in her own life. You are seen. You are believed. You are not alone. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic abuse of any kind, please reach out for help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233, or text START to 88788. You can also visit thehotline.org for resources and support. You deserve safety. You deserve freedom. You deserve to be you. If this story resonated with you, please like this video so more people can hear it. Subscribe for more real stories about marriage, control, healing, and resilience. And tell me in the comments, have you ever felt controlled through money, or are you living it right now? Don't forget that nobody will choose your happiness for you. Your voice matters.